Hi, Ed77 back again. Zoe Quinn has recently updated her blog regarding her life and course and everything. I'm going to go through each paragraph and address several points per paragraph and let you know what I think of them. Not going to go through everything because I don't have the time nor the patience to do so. So only a few points here and there. I am not editing this, so I apologize if it's long and rambly and messy. It needs to be. I've been measured and silent and obedient for so long, but if I'm going to write about denied humanity, it needs to be like this. You need to see unsanitized, reckless honesty just as much as I need to write it. Targets of mob abuse take a risk every time we're brutally honest in public, so we usually don't, but I'm too frustrated to give you PR when I'm working against the clock. If I'm gonna get hurt for an update in my court case, it's about fucking time it happens on my term instead of his. Okay, let's hear what you have to say. I just hung up from what I hope will be my last phone call with the district attorney assigned to my case, and I choked back tears as she told me that I'd conducted myself with grace through this whole nightmare. I don't know why I'm crying. I'm writing this and examining it as I go through the fog of someone with PTSD. I don't know if the tears are out of frustration or having sunk a year and a half into this awful system for seemingly less than nothing, or if it's out of relief. This is probably just you crying for attention, rather than what you just mentioned. And what's with the PTSD? I'll address this part later when you mention it again. My ex, who we'll call Creepthroat, because seeing his name makes a knot of anxiety rise in my throat, will be notified soon that the charges were dropped, but not why. I'm sure he'll launch another salvo of flat-out lies and spun truths to make it seem like the last year and a half was a byproduct of me asking for it, that the court saw through it while making him seem like a downtrodden hero of free speech. He managed to do that with previous court dates, leaving out things like a judge flat-out stating that she believed he had physically assaulted me during the last time we had sex, and that he had gone through my friend's social media feeds of the day afterward to prove that I wasn't acting like a victim by spending time with my friends. Even if he had stretched the truth, you certainly cannot get at him for doing that. You are one of the biggest liars out there. There has been proof that you aren't a victim, yet you still make yourself out to be one. So, instead of just watching this happen for the who knows how many time, I'm going to talk about it. It's not really about me as much as it is an attempt to dispel some common bullshit assumptions the average person has about the justice system and what it means to press charges. Okay, you go, girl. One of the biggest myths that need to die is that your first response to being abused should be to go to the police and seek justice. Leaving aside the fact that the police flat out murder unarmed citizens for their race all the time, and that sex workers are likely to be incarcerated when reporting crime done to them, and a myriad of other things I can't get into, I have a certain amount of privilege and a well-documented case. I have one of the most public abuse cases out there. It started a hate movement that swept up my industry and hurt dozens of bystanders, and got international media attention. A lot of people don't think of it in terms of domestic violence. They forget where the flashpoint of Gamergate came from. You might not even know who the man responsible's name. To make matters worse, I was unable to speak up during the time period out of fear of reprisal from the judicial system, more on that later, and watched as he was washed out of history, along with a lot of other people targeted. I was on my own on this front until the Boston Magazine article was posted by a journalist who had been following everything and speaking with my ex. Shortly after, I got a call from the DA telling me that I shouldn't have been told simply to go offline, and that she knew we had a very strong case worth prosecuting. So why am I dissolving it then? I'll ignore the part on your opinion of racial injustice and sex workers. Maybe your first action should have been to go offline. Milo Yiannopoulos said it best in a documentary I saw last week, where he simply says to the reporter, turn your computer off. I've been online since 1996, and I won't count the amount of abuse and death threats I've received. Loads of people have been given abuse online, and they don't cry about it, they just carry on. As for your industry, you haven't done anything except make a web page with links and passing it off as a game. Ironically, getting a restraining order against Creepthroat was the least effective thing I could do in terms of getting him out of my life for good, and for protecting myself. I'll discuss the hot mess of problems around that experience at a later time, without getting into a long, complicated blow-by-blow every time something happened or the case was updated. He'd run back to the mob and make promises and jokes and pleas for more money. The mob would respond by going after me, my family, and anyone else they decided was involved. The mythology surrounding me would expand. Conspiracy charts would prove I am secretly rich and really deserved it all along, and inspire more threats, stalking, and abuse. The cycle repeated itself endlessly. People kept getting hurt for being close to me, for a poorly worded restraining order that did nothing. Okay, did the restraining order work? Did he himself stop contacting you? If so, then that's what a restraining order is meant to do. This cycle was so vicious that I even vacated the order myself once he appealed, hoping to make it end. I gave him the legal relief that he had asked for. It might sound weak, but I'm not made of stone. I'm a scared person trying to escape her abuser in spite of the fact that he's created a self-perpetuating faction within my own industry to continue to punish me for walking away. It wasn't about him fighting a powerful evil woman, or gaining his oh-so-crucial right to sick a mob on me. It's always been about punishing me. It was about using it as a way to hurt me further, so when I gave him what he ostensibly wanted, he actually showed up to object to my motion to vacate the order and hand him a win. The court dismissed him, and the order has been dead for months, and yet he's back on Kotiko in action, churning the waters about the oral arguments they're hearing on a non-existent order next month. Sure, you walked away, but you spent a long time doing it. In the original email exchange between you and him, you had lots of chances to walk, but you didn't. You carried on your infidelity and kept messing him around. He gets paid, he gets attention, he even brought a date to court once, and the cycle continues. All the while, shit gets worse and worse for me and my family. The simple fact of the matter is the criminal justice system is meant to punish, not protect. I don't care about seeing him punished. I would rather he get better. And they've done nothing to protect me. It's only made things worse and become another weapon in his arsenal, and the arsenal of the people out there way scarier than him. No, he doesn't get paid. He said as such in his reply to you. You get paid, though, and you also get lots of attention. Maybe that's what you want. It was a Reddit thread that showed up in my Google alerts for my name that I had set up to help grow my indie dev business before all this started, like so many people in my industry. The title was, "If Aaron goes to jail, I will hunt Zoe Quinn down and rape her." Alerts and direct contact like this, specifically discussing the court case, was only escalating and becoming more common. I'm used to things like this at this point, but it doesn't mean it doesn't affect me. It doesn't mean it doesn't affect anyone close to me who becomes collateral damage in this sick crusade my ex started against me. The continual escalation only ever increases the chances that someone will make good on something like this. Trying to get the law to protect me has only continually put me in harm's way. Let's get serious here. Do you really think someone who doesn't know you, doesn't know where you are, and doesn't care about you is actually going to rape you? Why, then, would I ever want to sign up for more years of my life spent flying back to Boston, a place where it's not safe for me to be, to continue another chapter in this nightmare? Why would I want to keep digging at a giant scar? For the attention, of course. Established legal precedent, you might think. I did too. Then Alonis v. United States offered little hope that a court wouldn't skirt the issues of how domestic violence manifests online. Then Steph Guthrie and her co-defendant lost their case, The transcripts showing equal parts. She was asking for it, and how did this get in there? I am not good at computers. Going to court is like rolling the dice. The precedent you establish isn't up to you, and I didn't like to risk becoming a tool in the next creep-throat's arsenal if we lost. I have worked with enough lawmakers, law enforcement officers, lawyers, and judges at this point through our work with Crash Override to know that education is sorely lagging behind on these issues, not to mention the cultural biases that come with any cases like that. Funny that. How many times have women made false accusations being believed only for a man to lose everything? What you think is a cultural bias is simply them being open-minded. There is every chance you made a few things up. You probably know that judges and juries can be biased and hold backward views and assumptions. Given that you're a human in 2016 reading this blog and have probably seen at least one news story about a cop getting away with murdering an unarmed black citizen without so much as a trial. You may have seen in it any reporting on how likely it is for rape survivors to see justice combined with how backward everyone is talking about it. This is at least partly because the US has a very specific idea of who is worth protecting, doubly so when the person in question is being victimized while marginalized. Okay, I'll give you that one about the police getting away with racial killings. As for the rape victims, well, you lot keep saying false accusations are rare, but they are not. The more false accusations made makes it difficult when it comes to real victims. When you seek charges, you're on trial as much as the other person, if not more. The asking for it defense is alive and well, even in 2016, and you have to be a good victim in order to give your case the best shot it has. Good victim, when it comes to women in domestic or gendered violence cases like mine, tends to mean a lot of loaded, even conflicting things. The courts do not favour a lot of women simply for being who they are. Women of colour, trans women, sex workers, I could go on. Even beyond that, you have to be well behaved and silent about the proceedings, or risk pissing off the judges and giving the defence attorneys ammo to work with. Even my cracked article was waved around in court by my ex's lawyers, citing it as the most disgusting thing that happened during Gamergate, despite my almost 1 foot stack of threats and photos of me that people had printed out, jizzed on and sent to my family. The defence, so far, had hung a hat on trying to prove I deserved all of this. Cracked has a social justice agenda. It also has a very big reader base. Your article probably got loads of views and made a bunch of people come to your defense. It happened to be used against you despite it being beneficial, and yet you cry about it. I have been open about my depression and my history in sex work. I have not gone out of the public eye during all of the abuse, and I don't regret that. I believe in standing up for sex workers and people living with mental health concerns, and anyone else I can. And I don't know what would have happened if I had kept my mouth shut when I was targeted 2 years ago. But this comes with a cost. Everything I have said and done will be held against me and spun by my abuser. The cost of being who I am in defiance of the abuse was sacrificing being a good victim. You were never out of the public eye. You were in the United Nations conference, remember, with Anita Sarkeesian? Let's not forget, you were also an abuser to your ex. The spin is even more successful in these cases, because of how disconnected judges, lawyers, police and juries often are from the internet. One told me to simply give up my career and stop going offline if I didn't like the abuse. He barely bothered to look at my huge stack of evidence, but took for declaring he had no idea what the internet was and didn't want to know. I'm pretty sure people working in law are clued up about what happens online. Why didn't you request a different lawyer? All the while, it's hard to explain the indignity of having to sit through this and try to be a good victim. To sit in the same room as the man who did this to you, and so many others, and not appear too emotional or shaken, because the last time you said, too much, it became proof that you were lying instead of reliving trauma on command. Do you hide your anger and your outrage and your hurt so you don't look like you're seeking revenge? but to also not hold back too much, because then you look robotic and unaffected, like you haven't been in fear of this man, or in fear for your life for almost 2 years. So you have to sit silently while everyone messes up basic facts of the case because they can't tell the difference between usernames. To leave little bloody half-moons in the palms of your hands from squeezing your fists too tightly, like you aren't shaking from being in the same room with him. I'll admit I'm not too sure how the courts work in the United States. Here in the UK, you can ask for a protective screen, or in some cases give evidence through webcam. Many so-called victims in general still go to court to face their abuser and go through with it. What makes you so special? What good does any of this do for anyone? It's been almost 2 years now, and I desperately want to move on with my life. Even if I did win, I doubt locking Creep Throat away would do anything. Even putting aside my huge misgivings with the US prison system, he's not going to change. The people who support him would see him as a martyr. I'd probably be looking at years of appeals and court dates and apologising to my family for MRAs screaming at them in the middle of the night. Ah yes, always the MRAs. Not everyone supports him. Some people don't even care about him. Many people care more about the ethics in games journalism. Seems like you're trying to make it all about you. I'm tired. I have been trying to pick up the pieces of my life for almost 2 years at this point, and I've done a lot of healing, a lot of building of what I feel are more workable pushes to improve the lives of people being abused online, and a lot of self-improvement. I'm going to a place where I'm kind of okay even while the abuse hasn't slowed down. But every time I have to touch this festering part of my life, it drains the energy out of me. I have less energy to do casework at Crash, less energy to meet with tech partners to tell them how to do better and the ways they're fucking up, less energy to make my goofy video games about feelings and farts, less energy for my friends and family and loved ones that have been helplessly watching me torn apart by this man for years. Wait a moment. Didn't Anita Sarkeesian post something similar about all her work at Feminist Frequency being draining? Is there a pattern here? In my opinion, it's not time yet. I'm not the right person to win this fight or set this precedent. It's too early, and I'm a messy, complicated artist who has a hard time keeping her mouth shut while she watches other people hurt. I'm not the platonic ideal of a good victim because I've had a long past. I don't even have any faith in the system to not totally fuck it up every step of the way, even when it's working as intended. The simple fact of the matter is I'm less useful to the world as someone who fought the case, win or lose, than someone who can throw all hopes of winning away, to be honest with you, to educate you, to try and call for reform so I can set the next girl up for a spike instead of falling on my face. That's even assuming the process doesn't kill me. I'm still someone who was already living with depression and now has complex PTSD on top of it. An artist, you say? Writing a so-called game in HTML makes you an artist. As for the whole PTSD nonsense, these guys get PTSD. These guys get hurt feelings. Welcome to the real world. I'm scared of posting this, but I'm tired of hiding and keeping my head down and plodding along. I know it'll kick some shit up, everything does, but I also know he's going to try to twist this stuff like he always has. I'm tired of letting him control me. I'm tired of being afraid of being honest. I'm tired of watching people hand out, "Just go to the police, they'll protect you," while I silently scream and bite my tongue, because I know the advice giver is giving horrible, ignorant advice. It's so much more complicated than that, and if someone decides to go to the cops about their abuser, they should be doing it with a more informed and prepared plan than I ever did. They shouldn't have to have their lives hijacked for years to find out that's what they were risking in the first place. I wish I had those 2 years back. The least I can do to make that right is to be honest and open with the world while trying to reduce the cost of manoeuvring through these systems. The least I can do is try to succeed at getting my life back where the courts have utterly failed. When all else fails, blame someone else. Your life was never not on track. You always had employment, plenty of support, and many boyfriends. Maybe, if you treated your boyfriend right in the first place, none of this would have happened. I won't ever get my life back, but that doesn't mean I can't live in the meantime. Hopefully the next girl won't have years stolen from her in the first place. And again, sorry if I've put my foot in my mouth through any of this unedited brain dump. It's been a really, really long 2 years, and I'm more than a little tired. You seem to be doing just fine. All this seems like a massive cry for attention. Poor, poor victim, Zoe. Like I said earlier, many people do not care about you or what you have to say. They have better things to do.